Yes,
we also got Andy No. He's in town.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Who are you? What do you do?
I am a journalist, a senior editor at the Post Millennial. I'm probably most well known for my reporting on Antifa.
Right on. And recently there was something happened. We'll talk about this too. A member of the Democratic Party sent a terroristic threat to shut down one of your events or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm in the U.S. on this trip because on Friday, September 22nd, I was invited to speak by the Common Sense Society in Richmond, Virginia, an event put on by the Virginia Council. And it took the third venue for me to actually speak. The first one was the Commonwealth Club, which is a gentleman's club, and they gave in to a cancel campaign by the extremist far left.
A gentleman's club?
Yes, that's right.
Like a strip club?
No.
Like a social club, right?
Sorry, I forgot. Yeah.
That's the American colloquialism.
Correct. Social club for men.
Okay.
So they canceled. Shame on them. And then the second was the a Marriott hotel in Richmond, and on the day of, they canceled. And all it took for them in a cave was just for these agitators to call in. They put out the script with all these lies saying that I was a neo-Nazi, this was a neo-Nazi event, and armed Nazis was coming, and Marriott Corporate canceled. And fortunately, we were able to speak at a community center in the end, and there were about 200 people who came, and there were a lot of attempts to shut it down, and there was a person who's a leader in the official Democrat Party group in Richmond, Jimmy Lee Jarvis, who posted a picture on social media saying that he was going to the Andy Ngo event, and the picture was of an individual holding up a box of dynamite.
Wow. Well, we'll talk about that and a whole lot more. So thanks for hanging out, man. Glad to see that you're okay and the event went off somehow. Burger King faces boycott after yanking ads from Rumble over Russell Brand accusations. There's so much crammed into this headline. Russell Brand accusations, Rumble defends it, Burger King boycotts. Man, that's like each of those things are big stories just piled on top of each other. They say, though Burger King hasn't publicly stated why it recently removed its adverts on the popular site, just as other brands like ASOS and HelloFresh recently did, social media users have questioned the timing of the move, which came just 1 week after Brand came under fire. The Whopper House has since been bashed for pulling its ads from the self-proclaimed free speech platform before Brand has actually been convicted.
We really need to commend Rumble for not giving in to the pressure campaigns that they're probably feeling from every direction right now. YouTube should be condemned, I think, in the strongest terms for demonetizing Russell Brand based on accusations in the media where he has really no recourse or ability to respond other than through the media space. And the BBC has been pressured into removing old content that features brands, so he's losing royalties from there. With that said, I do want to caveat that I think for all the people that have come out immediately in defense of Mr. Brand, I'm just concerned that the backlash against Believe All Women is becoming now the flip side of Believe No Women. And I actually think that the Sunday Times investigation was very thorough, and I think the allegations are credible. With that said, though, they are anonymous, and they're placed entirely in the space of a media PR battle, not through a civil lawsuit, and no charges have been filed in the criminal space. So for a man now who's having his entire career unravel in a matter of hours, it's a deep injustice, and it feels. I
don't find them credible.
You don't?
No, I mean, first, I'll defer to you. I mean, I've only read the articles about them, right? Why would the UK government try to get Russell Brand banned? That makes no sense. That makes the claims, it strikes at their credibility outright. Like, for sure, you can make the argument that the member of parliament was just exploiting a crisis situation for political gain, but I just don't see it.
I think the actions of these third parties who are now politicians, activist groups, online activists, I think their actions shouldn't necessarily affect the credibility of those who have come forward. These are third parties that have their own ulterior motives. The MP will have her own reasons to try to elevate her name and profile in the press through these type of actions, as well as other individuals who have placed pressure to try to destroy the career of Russell Brand. It's just, I think, I've been through, I've been the victim in, I've been through a criminal trial where I was a witness who testified and made allegations in a criminal matter before. And that process, I think, it helped me understand potentially why some victims don't go forward. The process of being cross-examined and gaslit and reliving over and over a really traumatic experience it really destroys you. And that then kind of opened my eyes to why I kind of understand why some women, for the first time, it made me understand perhaps why some people don't immediately go to law enforcement. However, that doesn't mean that I support then that decades later, years later, then they go anonymously to the press.
Yeah, I got to be honest, I don't care. I don't play to this emotional argument of, oh, it's so hard and it's so emotional. It was very difficult for people to do this. They say, oh, victims have a hard time. That sucks. Sorry. Have a nice day.
I think law enforcement in reporting is so key for victims to get justice. When you wait so many years and statutes of limitations pass, memories is blurry, evidence is lost and destroyed. It's just, the MeToo has been more about, I think, giving space for people to tell these stories where they can actually never be falsifiable. And that's, and in that case, you can never even wait for due process to play out. I see a lot of people responding, like centrist response on social media. We should withhold judgment and wait for just this process to play out. But there's no process playing out. So it's,
right.
I have criticisms on, going so many directions here.
I reject all of the accusations and allegations against Russell Brand outright. Russell Brand in the corporate press and in the movies is celebrated. Oh, this woman went to the police. I'm glad she did. If there's evidence that comes out, so be it. Then Russell Brand should go to prison if it's true. But
not police, a rape crisis center.
Okay, well then I don't believe it. Sorry. You need evidence to convict somebody. There's a lot of things people can do, and there's a lot of fake things people do. But my point ultimately, we have spent all of our time giving the benefit of the doubt to so many different people who are evil. This is from NBC News. Standing ovation for a Ukrainian who fought with Nazis sparks anger and an apology in Canada. I'd like to slow down for you all and just rephrase that headline, NBC News. How about Canadians give standing ovation to Nazi? Does that work for you guys? There you go.
So the big irony here is that the Speaker of the House of Commons in the Canadian Parliament, so he's with the Liberal Party, that's Trudeau's party, invited him, and the Nazi war veteran, and apparently all they had to hear was that he served on a unit that fought the USSR. But didn't ask further, on fighting against them on behalf of who? Well, fighting on behalf of the Nazis. It was an SS unit. And I guess people should remember that just a year and a half ago, January 2022, when the Canadian convoy protests were happening, the Liberal government, Trudeau, condemned them and said that they were using Nazi symbolism and Nazi imagery and racism. And here they are now, Prime Minister Trudeau next to President Zelensky and the entire parliament giving a standing ovation to not just an accused Nazi or somebody who's accused of being far right, but an actual Nazi veteran.
Yeah. He was he served in the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS, a Nazi military unit whose crimes against humanity during the Holocaust are well documented.
It's also, the story has also become a big scandal in Poland because that particular unit that elderly man was part of was involved in a lot of slaughtering of a lot of Poles.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's frustrating to me that often quite educated people are, so they're very good at recognizing propaganda from Russia, and good for them for that and calling it out. But the propaganda that is coming out from Ukraine, it's like there's no scrutiny of any of it, and there's so much propaganda. This whole, one, turning a blind eye to the contemporary connections to Nazi organizing in Ukraine. That's completely now no longer an issue to liberals around the world. And then Ukraine now being reframed as this bastion of liberal and progressive values, when that's not the reality of what that country is, nor their society.
You're not even allowed to have any kind of doubt. You're supposed to submit entirely to supporting Ukraine and never question any of it. I mean, look how much money we have shipped over to Ukraine. Why? Because we're just supposed to.
And those who do speak out are then smeared as somehow fans of Russia or fans of Putin. I mean, yeah, the smear tactics just causes people to become fearful.
Mm-hmm. And I think so much of it is just a lack of understanding of geopolitical history, right? They have no idea what the ties or, they don't know what happened in Crimea. They don't know what to say. They just know right now it's good to have your blue and yellow flag out and to agree with whatever Biden says and therefore whatever Zelensky says.
Yes. They want a simple story of villains and heroes, who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. Mm-hmm. And then it leads them to do stupid mistakes. I think it was a genuine mistake, like what happened in the Canadian Parliament. A Ukrainian World War II hero veteran. Great, let's invite him. And
they stop looking.
Yes.
And I think that's also a testament to the shortened attention span. I mean, I assume whoever vetted him is fairly young, working in a staff position for this elected official, and they think, oh yeah, I read most of that headline and I know what I'm talking about.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters at all that whether it's a mistake or not. So all I can say is, yes, Canadian Parliament gave a standing ovation to a Nazi. Yeah, but as I said, I don't care why they did it. They did it.
Ukraine has become so good at playing the West like a fiddle. Like one of their spokespersons now is this transgender American.
Not anymore, though.
Oh, that changed?
I think they got rid of that person because of the trans spokesperson threatened to kill anyone, or something like that. Was that what happened?
I can look it up, but I'm not sure.
There's like a video where
well, either was or until very recently, this transgender American spokesperson for Ukrainian military who doesn't even speak Ukrainian. Obviously, that's playing to the sentiments of the left in the United States. And then
Ukraine's a colony of the United States.
And then when Zelensky went to the UN giving a speech and talking about climate change.
Oh, right. But listen, Ukraine is a colony of the United States. That's why an American English-speaking leftist is the one talking about what's going on.
I mean, do you guys know anyone who's like, yes, this is a great idea. Let us continue to send money to Ukraine?
Not at all.
No?
Well, I think among Democrats, it's still quite a popular position. And certainly in the EU and in UK, that remains a really popular position.
But why? What is their objective other than we just don't like Russia?
Well, there's this whole apparatus in the media that does put out the propaganda talking points from Ukraine about this being more than just a war between two nations. It's a war between good and evil, and it's packaged in a way that's simple for the masses, and it works.
There's a good side and a bad side,
and it's popular among Democrats in the U.S. and liberal voters in Canada and liberal people in Europe.
But is it enough to outweigh the economic hardship that people in the U.S. are facing? I mean, we were just talking about gas prices in L.A. are crazy. If you heard this is your cost of living, but also we're still going to continue to fund this war abroad, it would be impossible, at least in my opinion, for anyone who's reasonable to say that's a good use of our tax dollars. I appreciate this.
Well, it's a nuanced issue. And it's difficult, I think, for the masses to comprehend and to come up with an informed position. It's similar to the problems that arise from immigration. We know what it does on the labor market, what it does, how it makes housing crisis worse. But people, by and large, in urban areas don't really push back on the policies of sanctuary cities or U.S. immigration policy. In fact, in these areas, they're the loudest in saying, well, have them come in. They want the cake and to eat it too, and they don't realize that the balancing the books actually in the end doesn't really work, and you're going to suffer one way or the other. And I mean, this is really the responsibility of the press to present the truth on these issues to the public, but the establishment legacy media fails in that because they're captured.
Could you think the legacy media would ever go back to having a standard for truth, or do you think it's a lost cause?
The journalism programs at the universities that lead to people going into New York Times and Washington Post and other places, it's all, I mean, these programs have long been captured. I don't really know how you can, at this point, do much.
So what's the future of legacy media, in your opinion?
Gosh. I don't know. What I would like to see happen is independent and conservative media having more support from philanthropists, for one. I mean, it's really hard to get independent media well funded. You know, writers need to be paid, reporters need salaries, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of money to get that type of stuff going. And we just have to build up these different institutions, I guess. You know, I mean, it's a cliche what I'm saying, but really it's so important. And I think what causes a lot of conservative or independent media to go under is ultimately just the funding's not there. Mm-hmm. People want to get their news for free. Everyone hates going to a news link and then you have to log in or you have to pay or something. Mm-hmm. You know, but that or the experience is filled with a whole bunch of ads, and that's not pleasant either. But it's
unless you're Rumble, and then there's no Burger King ads.
And the left has more than enough patrons, so they will get funding from powerful, prominent individuals who want to prop up the system. We did not have this in the 2020 cycle, so if it would stand to reason if the election were held today, Joe Biden loses.
Yeah,
but how's he doing in the crucial states though?
I don't know. That's a good question. I can say that this poll also found among independents, Trump is up, I think, like 11. So that matters. Independent voters matters for the swing states, but the swing states themselves, it's a more important question individually.
Who do you think the vice president be? Who do you think Trump's going to pick as a vice president? Because I feel like his vice president's actually going to be sort of important. I mean, given everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys really think that a Republican can win in 2024, given how the electoral process has changed since COVID?
Yes.
I mean, those changes.
Trump only lost by 42,000 votes in 2020.
Yes, but in my opinion, the way elections are run in many states, it systematically disadvantages Republicans.
Of course it does. But Trump only lost by 42,000 votes. The advantage Democrats had with universal mail-in voting was everyone was locked inside their homes and they couldn't leave. They don't have that advantage anymore. So they'll need something.
But we've had other elections since November 2020, and it hasn't really turned out that well for Republicans.
Because Republicans are only just now starting to wake up to the issue. And again, we're talking about an electoral system where Trump lost by 42,000 votes in 3 states, which could easily be made up, versus individual members of Congress in key districts.
I find that interesting because I've always lived in more liberal leaning areas where if you like any kind of conservative or libertarian, you tend to keep it to yourself. But every once in a while you'll be somewhere and you'll see there's one house on the block that is like, I don't care, I'm putting up my political signs. And they're typically 45 pro-Trump signs. There's this one house that I pass in the area that'll have this flag of like Trump standing over eagles and like, you know, he's like just like a caricature. But there's no equivalent for Joe Biden. There is maybe...
If you live in a neighborhood where people feel safe and comfortable to put up political signage of different diverse views, consider yourself quite fortunate. Coming from Portland, Oregon, if you expressed any type of dissenting views, your property would be highly likely subjected to violence or potentially even serious violence like arson or such.
Yeah.
Well, let me pull up the story real quick. Just put a pin in that. We have this from the Post Millennial. Leader in Richmond Democrat Party group posted bomb threat against Andy No Virginia talk. The post included an image of dynamite with Jarvis writing in the description box, "On my way to the Andy No event." So you've experienced this stuff. I think everyone knows directly covering the extremism. Do you want to elaborate on what you were talking about?
Well, you know, because the left has cultural dominance, and they face no censure or no social consequences for expressing radical and hateful extremist beliefs. They're able to push it further and further to the point where you can have somebody who's I mean, we're not talking about somebody who's in Black Bloc, Antifa type of group. This is somebody who's in a leadership role in the Richmond City Democratic Committee, which is the official Democrat Party group in Richmond, Virginia, feeling confident and fine to put this type of posts publicly. And going back to what I was just saying a moment ago, those leftists who feel empowered to go and destroy people's properties because of they're expressing a different political view. So, my heart is warm just to hear Claire just talk briefly about, the different type of political science that she's seen in places she lives. Don't take that for granted. If you're an American who lives in one of those places, consider yourself lucky, because there are places like Portland, Seattle, obviously different boroughs of New York, where you are potentially put yourself and your family at risk for expressing a mainstream political view.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they had that guy whose biker neighbor went and lit his Trump sign on fire. I mean, there are places that people do feel entitled to.
Well, they weren't neighbors, though. The guy lived kind of far
I just
away.
meant that he biked in the area. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting. One of the things that you're saying reminds me of, in your book, you talked about how people, especially progressive groups, will travel to small towns and set up coffee shops or bookstores and sort of become very visible in that sense. And that becomes sort of how they begin to have influence and control areas. So there are times that people are expressing their views because they are relying on the tolerance and the community's ability to welcome them, even if they don't agree with them. And then they become sort of a destructive force in and of themselves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we see this phenomenon all the time. People who adhere to a certain principle of tolerance, and then the other side gains power, and that is not reciprocated back onto them, mm-hmm. and they suffer as a result. I mean, conservatives experience that a lot, right? Mm-hmm. We want to welcome and protect all views of expression, but then you have those who are calling for an overturning of the entire system and a totalitarian system where people are subjected to violence, potentially, or death for their views. And I mean, I'm not saying that's manifested in real life necessarily anywhere in the US, but there's certain pockets where those type of sentiments are salient to a population, and they're able to cause so much violence and destruction on those around them, and the victims just have no ability to counter. So I was speaking in Richmond because Richmond is a city that has experienced over the years a really radical cultural shift to the left. I think a lot of that has to do with the university there, the Virginia Commonwealth University. They had months of riots in 2020 like Portland, and a lot of the same parallels between Portland and Virginia I documented and explored in the speech. You have elected local officials, the mayor or those on city council, condoning the riots, even going out to some of those protests turned riots to participate and give them support. You have police whose ability to actually enforce the law is curtailed by the local politicians. And then you have outside agitators coming in, and with that, a lot of money. And it just creates, a lot of destabilization. I think one of the questions I was asked when I spoke on Friday was like, could this happen again? And I say, well, yes, obviously, because the networks that were strengthened and established in 2020 are not only still there, they're stronger now. And there might be a bit of protest and riot fatigue today, but just give it a bit of time and there will be some other George Floyd type moment that's caught on video, clipped, exploited, and blasted on social media. Get people to the streets.
Well, 2024 is around the corner. It is about that time.
Yeah.
Right? 2020, BLM, George Floyd, election year. 2024, this next summer.
But Richmond doesn't have any more monuments to pull down. What are they going to do?
What's going to happen with 2024 is they don't need there to be an actual instance of like racism or violence. The media will just make it up. Garage pole rope, it's a noose.
Well, Trump being the Republican nominee would get people out on the streets. I mean, in 2016, 2015 and early 2016, that was such a powerful propaganda coup for Antifa because, before their messaging, extremist messaging comes out through their pamphlets and texts and their blogs, which reaches a smaller audience. With Trump being the nominee at that time, then now they have the entire liberal media establishment saying the exact same talking points. America might elect a fascist, and then after the election, America did elect a fascist. Death camps are around the corner, mass deportations around the corners. I mean, this sounds crazy as I say it now, but look back on the opinion pieces and headlines that were published in the papers of record. Those were the type of sentiments that they were putting out. It brainwashed a lot of useful idiots on the left to go out and be much more accepting of political violence on their side. But this type of disinfo that causes hysteria and panic is so dangerous. I mean, when you ingrain into, let's say, 50% of the population that this Republican frontrunner is a fascist, then that label then is applied obviously to people who would vote for him and those who support for him. And then what do good moral people do against fascists? Well, we want to bash them, and it normalizes that type of acceptance of political violence. I'm speaking, unfortunately, as somebody who's been a victim of the violence of Antifa because of these labels that have been applied to me. And then, I mean, with the event that I just spoke at in Richmond, the script that was going out to these different venues that canceled, it took the third venue for me to actually be able to speak. People would just call in and say things like, you have a neo-Nazi who's speaking, there are armed neo-Nazis who are coming. As this event goes forward, people could actually die. And people in corporate PRs are just freak out. They're like, okay, well, they'll cancel it. And that's the danger, I think, of, we can laugh at this and look back, and because I think all of us here at this table are grounded. But there are actually so many people, even highly educated, perhaps it's the most educated, who are vulnerable to this type of hysteria and disinfo. But I take it so seriously, and I'm so angry at how sloppily people use these labels of like fascist and like definitely. Dictator and all these type of terms as if it's like okay to just throw it around. And apparently now, people just do that with like reckless abandon. Yeah. And it's like, people who instill that into their beliefs, like actually take up weapons and like maim and like kill people on that belief. That happened in Portland with a self-described Antifa member who shot dead a Trump supporter because he really thought this guy was this white supremacist fascist, just murdered him in downtown. Yep. So do you guys think people on the right are a bit too loose in their accusations of their political opponents of being communists and socialists?
Nope.
And you don't?
Nope. I don't think it's incorrect to say that they're communists. Did every single communist in the Soviet Union who supported the system or participated in it know that they were communists? Did they read literature on Marx, or were they just doing as they were told? They were just doing as they were told. It was the commonplace ignorance that led to these evil actions. So you have high-profile individuals like people in the Fulton County DA's office charging Donald Trump. They're evil. You have the people in New York City that are filing these lawsuits, falsely accusing Trump of things, or trying to charge him on these BS charges. You've got the documents case against him. All of this is complete garbage nonsense. You have the Democrats who in 2016 claimed falsely that Russia manipulated the election to help Donald Trump win and Trump was illegitimate. Then 2020 comes around, and when the opponents of Biden start saying similar things about fraud, they say, you're all crazy psychopaths, et cetera, et cetera. They are a combination of all things evil. Powerful interests at the top who say things like, can't we just drone this guy? In reference to Julian Assange in London. Hillary Clinton is evil. But then you have the blind, ignorant followers. So if you have high-profile activists who raise hundreds of millions of dollars who say that they are Marxists, explicitly, that's Black Lives Matter, and then you have people marching in the street throwing up the red salute in support of overt communism, they're communists. Yeah, they don't have to sit there and put their hand on the Bible of Marx, Das Kapital, and things like that. They just need to be cogs in the machine that actively support the issue of communism. Yeah. And then you have people breaking free from that, saying, I don't want to be involved, and that's fine, they can. But for the time being, if BLM is coming out saying they're trained Marxists, and then I see videos of millennials and Gen Z doing the red salute,
What's your take? Do you think that people are inaccurate when they criticize the left as being communists?
Well, if Tim is specifically talking about the militant activists who use those symbols that are associated with communism, well, clearly those are apt labels for them. I just, I cringe often when I see people on the right very kind of loosely just calling random large swaths of the political opposition just, these are just all communists, or we're using the term fascist as well. It just
one's true and one's not.
Language is so important, and meaning in the definitions of words is important. And I just, I think playing the same game of what the left does, of just, their disregard of who they call fascist or who they call far right, whatever. I think the right should be very careful not to mirror that in the same way. Unfortunately, that boat has already sailed.
But why shouldn't they mirror it? Are you implying that they're only saying it because it was said of them?
Yes, and it's about sort of like just this rhetorical claim of like, okay, you call us, you're so loose with the word fascist on our side. We're just gonna call all of you.
But that's not
communists.
what's happening. It is a fact that they're communists. It is not a fact.
Some of them.
But right. So you're defining communist as someone who is a learned, read communist, as opposed to the banality of communism.
Not even necessarily learned. They could just, somebody who's just finds appeal in the basic tenets of communism. That's
like,
not particularly
if a guy is puts on a black hoodie and runs around with Antifa smashing things, is he a communist?
Not necessarily. He might identify as a militant anarchist. That's a big part of the Antifa.
But that's not anarchy. Anarchy meaning without authority, right? So they can call themselves whatever they want. I don't care. That's not true. Anarchists are not violent, right?
Well,
if the far left,
there are examples in 20th century European history of, anarchist ideologues who've carried out assassinations and other types of violence.
So I would argue the core of the phrase "without authority" would displace a person from the use of violence.
But this is just the no true Scotsman argument.
No, it's not. It's the if someone comes to you and says they're a thing, does it mean they are a thing? No, it does not. Words define things. So if someone comes to you and they're clearly a white blonde guy and they say, actually, I'm a black guy from Nigeria, you're going to be like, you are actually a white guy, right?
Within political philosophies, if there is a faction that identifies within this larger political ideology and they carry out actions that, in the name of this ideology, I don't think we should necessarily just say, well, they're not acting truly in for this particular cause. I get into, there are a lot of women's rights activists who actually really disagree with the work I do, because I particularly talk about how a lot of these women's rights events, it's Antifa, Trantifa, communists and socialists and violent far left coming up to attack these women who are speaking out about trans ideology. Well, a lot of these women who are speaking out are old school leftists who say, no. These people, they're not leftists. They're not on our side. They have nothing to do with us. They're regressive. They're not on the same side as us. And I think that type of denial, it's not reflective of the reality that the on the ground manifestation of political philosophy does change over time. You're not going to have necessarily a peer manifestation every time, but it's still part of that. And I think I think within the wider anarchist community, anarchists need to start asking themselves a bit more, if they're not doing already, why are some of the most prominent anarchists we see doing the direct action on the street are the militant Antifa?
Because they're not anarchists. Your position comes from if a person declares themselves to be, they are. I disagree.
I just get frustrated when there's like
so the issue right now is
not recognizing a problem on one's own side, which I see the left does.
But the right is not wrong to call them communists. There you go. Andy, you want to shout anything out?
Yes. First, thank you, Tim. You can follow me on X at Mr. Andy NGO, and my website is andy-ngo.com. Please support my independent journalism. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun having you both here. I love that you can do legal services and music. So great. And it's always nice to see you, Andy.